Greetings, my friends, sailors of our dear, contaminated, and only spacecraft. The last time we saw each other, our dear planet has turned on its axis once again and developed new events. And I'm not standing. This means we have an important guest, Dossier and when I tell this name, I am honoring a struggler. Loise Lushaba has a degree in the University of Tajane, a master's degree in philosophy, a doctor's degree in the Social Science Center of Kolkata, and he has taught in For Hair and Wits and has been a scholarship awardee in 2 places. His interests are political philosophy, German philology, and illustration philosophy, decolonizing thought, representation policy, and post-colonial politics, and including post-colonial African policies and post-colonial African state intellectual thought in Africa. He has a huge list of publications: National Liberation to the Democratic Birth in South Africa, Development as Modernity, Modernity as Development, a high-level intellectual who represents the struggles that for decades we have supported solidarily and remotely. Welcome, Doctor.
What's the reason of your presence here? It's an honor to have you here.
First, let me greet compañero Walter Martinez.
Primeramente, permítame saludarlo
and thank you very much
y agradecerle
for allowing us the opportunity
por permitirnos esta oportunidad
to engage in this reconnaissance.
para establecer este reconocimiento.
What brings me to Venezuela
Lo que me trae hoy a Venezuela
is an important intellectual engagement.
es un compromiso intelectual importante.
So I was invited to Venezuela
Así que fui invitado a Venezuela
by a collective
por un colectivo
that works on decolonial thought.
que trabaja en el pensamiento descolonial.
This is a collective of intellectuals in Venezuela
Es un colectivo de intelectuales en Venezuela
who are engaged in thinking about how we may decolonize thought.
que se especializa en la manera en la que trabajamos el pensamiento descolonial.
More specifically,
Más específicamente,
they are concerned with reversing the impact of Western knowledge
están interesados en buscar la manera de revertir el conocimiento occidental, el impacto del conocimiento occidental,
reversing the colonial Western knowledge.
revertir el impacto del conocimiento occidental.
Because we must always remember
Porque debemos siempre recordar
that colonialism
que el colonialismo
was not just a military venture.
no fue solamente una aventura militar.
An important part of colonialism
Una parte importante del colonialismo
was the domination of the mind,
fue la dominación de la mente,
epistemic domination.
la dominación epistémica.
Because colonialism as a military venture
Porque el colonialismo como una aventura militar
or colonialism as physical domination,
o el colonialismo como una forma de dominación física,
if it was only that,
si fuera solo eso,
it would have ended long ago.
hubiese terminado hace mucho tiempo.
At independence, we would have regained ourselves.
Y la independencia hubiese retornado a nosotros.
But even after formal independence,
Pero aun cuando luego de la independencia formal,
imperial domination continues.
la dominación imperial continúa.
And this imperial domination
Y esta dominación imperial
is not only economic,
no es solamente económica,
it produces or reproduces itself
produce y se reproduce a sí misma
in the universities,
en las universidades,
in the popular culture,
en la cultura popular,
in the societal values.
en los valores sociales.
And so it becomes important
Entonces se convierte importante
or critical
o crítico
if independence
si la independencia
is to have any meaning,
de tener significado,
that we must defeat colonialism in all its forms.
es que debemos vencer el colonialismo en cualquiera de sus formas.
And one of these is epistemic colonialism.
Y una de estas formas es el colonialismo epistémico.
So that's partly what has brought me to Venezuela, to think together
Eso es parte de lo que me ha traído aquí a Venezuela
with comrades,
para pensar juntos, junto a camaradas
who work in the battlefield of ideas.
que trabajan en el campo de las ideas.
Because we must not think about intellectual work
Porque no debemos pensar del trabajo intelectual
as a neutral site.
como un sitio neutral.
The academy or the areas of intellectual production
La academia de las áreas de producción intelectual
are themselves a battleground.
son sí mismas un campo de batalla
There are ideas that come from the West
de las ideas que provienen del occidente,
that want to dominate.
que quieren dominar.
So we are contesting those ideas.
Así que estamos respondiendo a estas ideas.
In a sense, we can be thought of as revolutionary intellectuals.
De alguna manera podemos ser vistos como revolucionarios intelectuales,
We are involved in intellectual combat.
que estamos envueltos en el combate intelectual.
So I've come to think together with other revolutionary intellectuals.
Así que he venido a trabajar con otros intelectuales
From Venezuela.
de Venezuela.
There's one more reason I've come to Venezuela, and I would stop after mentioning it to you now.
Ahora, hay una segunda razón por la que he venido a Venezuela.
It is that I come from a country
Es que vengo de un país
called South Africa,
llamado Suráfrica,
where colonialism
en donde el colonialismo
just ended in 1994.
apenas terminó en 1994.
So we only have been independent for 23 years.
Lo que significa que hemos sido independientes solo por 23 años.
But the effects of settler colonialism,
Pero
the effects of settler colonialism
los efectos del colonialismo
continue to be felt
continúan a sentirse,
because just like it was here in Venezuela,
porque así como ocurría aquí en Venezuela,
we have a number of white settlers
tenemos un número de colonizadores blancos
that continue to dominate the intellectual scene,
que continúan a dominar las áreas intelectuales,
or more specifically, they continue to dominate knowledge production in South Africa.
o más específicamente continúan a dominar el conocimiento intelectual en Sudáfrica.
These white settlers continue to own land in South Africa.
Estos blancos continúan poseyendo tierras en Sudáfrica,
They continue to dominate the economy.
continúan dominando la economía,
They continue to dominate popular culture.
They continue to
continúan
dominate
dominando la cultura popular,
popular culture, societal
los
values.
valores sociales.
So the reason
The other reason I've come to Venezuela
La razón por la que he venido a Venezuela
is to learn from the revolution how it has reversed the effects of settler colonialism.
ha logrado revertir los efectos del colonialismo.
This country before 1992 was dominated by the white settlers from Europe. Thanks to Comandante Chavez and the revolution, you have been able to reverse that domination. Of course, this has come at a cost. In South Africa, we are only beginning to confront. We're only beginning to confront settler colonialism in its full effect.
Así que apenas estamos comenzando a exigir que devuelvan nuestras tierras.
Demanding that they return our lands, we're only beginning that they return our wealth. We're only beginning now to demand that universities must stop being dominated by white settlers. So the importance of my being in Venezuela is to learn how imperialism responds when indigenous people reclaim what is rightfully theirs. So the economic imperialism that we are suffering in Venezuela today is our future in South Africa, because that's how they're going to respond also to us. So Venezuela holds important lessons for us as we wage our revolution. I've come for those two reasons. I think that we can learn a lot ones from others. We have some advantage in one field and others have experience in others. So I think this is a synergy of mutual benefit. There's no doubt about that. Because the similarities between Venezuela and South Africa are great, or there are many. Both South Africa and Venezuela were settler colonies. We now know that settler colonialism is motivated by several factors. The settler, the white settler, is not just driven by economic factors. But in order to achieve his desires, because the desires of the white settler are not just material. They are sexual. Just as Venezuela was a victim of slavery, white settlers reigned their people in South Africa, raped their people in South Africa. So part of what identifies or what defines settler colonialism is generalized rape of the indigenous people. The second characteristic of settler colonialism is that the settler develops a right to be ignorant of the indigenous people. For the black colonizer, the indigenous people, they have to learn the culture of the colonizer. The colonizer doesn't have to reciprocate and learn about the indigenous people or the black colonized. So you have in settler colonies, Venezuela, South Africa, a situation where people, the white settlers, for generations live in a particular country without ever bothering to know anything about those they live with. So there are certain cultural resources that the settler develops in his or her relation with the black colonized. We can summarize this in a word. They are filled with contempt for the black colonized or indigenous people. Or they do not think of the black colonized as human beings. Or they do not relate with the black colonized as human beings. You only have to think about how this country, before the revolution of 1992, treated the indigenous people. What happened there, or prevailed here prior to February 4th, 1992, is our reality in South Africa today. But I must not de-emphasize the economic also. Because imperialism today, or the face of imperialism today, are multinational corporations and financial institutions that dominate our economies. It is the same thing in South Africa just as it is in Venezuela. Venezuela has oil, has gold, and several other mineral resources, strategic minerals. But the people are poor. It's the same thing in South Africa. South Africa has gold, diamonds, has platinum, has iron, and several other mineral resources. But the black people in South Africa are poor. So we must not think of imperialism economic imperialism as simply an economic process. It's also a racial process, because those who benefit with our minerals in South Africa are the white settlers and the whites in Europe and in America. Those were poor or black. It is not by coincidence. This is not just a matter of economics. It means we must think as capitalism as always being greedy and racial. It's the same thing in Venezuela. Those who are poor are the indigenous people, the black people, those who benefit from Venezuelan oil, minerals, are the white settlers and Europeans and Americans. Of course, you've done relatively better than us. You have reversed that trend thanks to the revolution. It was a true and authentic change, because in the Fourth Republic, we are now in the Fifth Republic, probably this program would have been announced by an oil company from the United States, as has happened in this channel. When Commander Chavez arrived, things changed. It was the second independence, and this meant making real a precept: free education, free medicines, equal rights for all, and redistribution of what before was taken by the oil companies in benefit of the country: housing, education, sports. Commander Chavez and the revolution in Venezuela. Oh, I said Cuba. We're talking of the family. Is a good example to us in South Africa. Today in South Africa, as we speak, university I come from, the racist University of Cape Town, has been shut down by students. It's a continuation of a struggle that we began 2 years ago. The students are saying there's something wrong in this society. Now they've shut down the university in part because to study in South Africa at the University of Cape Town For 1 year, at minimum, you pay $10,000. 1 year, $10,000 1 year. That includes accommodation, tuition fees, feeding, books, and everything. $10,000. Go around South Africa and see how many black people have that kind of money. So students are saying formal independence is not enough. We want substantial independence. When Chavez gave free education, free health care, free basic services, he was giving meaning to freedom. Our freedom in South Africa is black people. That has no meaning. Theoretically, those rights in Venezuela existed before Chavez, but they were diluted and they had transformed in a theory that didn't appear in practice. It's the same thing in South Africa today. Whites, liberal settlers, and black people who do not love themselves go around and say that we have the best constitution. Everywhere you go, they'll tell you that South Africa has the best constitution. In that constitution, the right to education, the right to water, the right to sanitation, the right to health care, they are part of the Bill of Rights. But black people do not enjoy it. They only exist on paper. So this is why there has emerged in South Africa in the past 5 years movements that speak a different language, a different political language from the political language of the nationalist elite. Because the problem with nationalist elites, it thinks that the privileges of white settlers or the privileges of modernity, of the privileges of white modernity, are their own privileges. So what the nationalist elite have done in South Africa is basically pushed aside the white settler colonizers from power, from political power, and planted themselves and left the structure untouched. So the nationalist elite are no longer useful. to our freedom as black people in South Africa. So there has emerged in South Africa in the past 4 or 5 years different kinds of movements that want to give meaning to freedom for the black colonized. There are a number of these movements. Amongst students, university students, they've started a movement called Fees Must Fall. It's a loosely organized movement of all university students demanding free, decolonized education. There's a movement, a political party, very much influenced by the Chavism movement. It's called the EFF, Economic Freedom Fighters. It's led by a young person called Julius Malema. Now, the reason I say it's influenced by the Chavismo movement it's because of its paraphernalia, its uniform. It's the same as the Chavism movement's paraphernalia or uniform. They wear a red beret. They wear red shirts. And the leader of the party is called Commander-in-Chief. Now, the similarities are very striking. But the more interesting similarities are at the level of ideology. So it's not just the beret that brings these movements together. It's that they speak the same language, the same political language, and they share the values, the same political values. The rehumanization of the black colonized. And so these two movements have brought into the South African political scene, or have introduced into the South African political scene, a new language of struggling. A nationalist elite speak in the language or the idiom of transformation. These movements speak in the idiom of decolonization. The difference is fundamental. The others are saying the nationalist elite, we can incrementally change the system. So according to the nationalist elite, you can still redeem white settler modernity. These movements are saying, just like Chavez said, There is nothing in this system that is redeemable. We must de-imagine and build a new society. The values are not the values of white settler colonial modernity. So they do not seek to remake or remodel the existing system in South Africa. They are seeking to fundamentally transform it. Fundamentally change the system from bottom to top. So the difference between transformation discourse and the discourse of decolonization is not a semantic difference. It enables a different kind of struggling, two kinds of struggling. So we are precisely at the point where the ground is being prepared for a fundamental change of society. So our moment of 4 February 1992 has not come. We are preparing for it. Our best wishes that this come true, because you have struggled a lot and suffered a lot and have a lot of values.
Cultural values, many own cultural values that are and you have the power to do that change.
And a small comment. The red beret doesn't mean a color of a given political ideology as Marxism or communism can seem. The red beret is characteristic of parachuters that were Chavez's specialty, among others, who were those who provoked the change by facts. And they reverted the country where oil transnationals, foreign oil transnational multinationals took the part of the lion. Now the people have, or we try the people to have the lion's part.
About the red beret. The red beret do not represent, by its color itself, not represent the communism or the Marxism. It represents, the red beret was used by the military unity where Commander Chavez was leading in 1992 when he started to make that change in the society. And this change have achieved today that the people today have redeemed the most bigger part of our wealth and not the foreign companies.
You are very correct. Now the symbol of the red beret has a very long history amongst revolutionary movements. Just as the color red, if we start with the color red, it represents this sweat and blood of the revolutionaries, the workers, who everywhere in the modern world, labor to produce the wealth, labor to produce the wealth, but they do not receive the benefits of that wealth. In fact, modern capitalism or capitalistic modernity does not end exploiting their sweat, the sweat of the workers. It also takes their blood because it kills them. After exploiting them physically, it then kills them. Now in South Africa we have very recent evidence of this cruelty of modern capitalism. In August 2012 or 2013, the nationalist elite in South Africa, or the state in South Africa, shot and killed the black miners. 36 of them. They gunned them down in Marikana. What was their crime? They had gone on strike demanding an increase in their salaries or wages. These are miners who basically go underground to bring platinum. To the surface of the earth. And they get paid pennies because they're black. When they went on strike, the black government shot and killed them. The great paradox, is that the forces that here should be the repressors because they have the force of the arms given by the Republic made the revolution thanks to the inspiration of Chavez movements.
The great paradox in Venezuela is that the forces that had the real power, the power of the guns, were the forces that made the revolution in Venezuela, inspired in the movement created by Commander Chavez.
Unfortunately for us, the Black Nationalists Party that inherited the state, that dominates the military, that dominates the state general, is precisely that nationalist party that has gone against black people. And so they have not realized the revolutionary potential. In fact, they deny the revolutionary potential that the occupation of the state gives to them. Because they think of themselves as being substitutes of the white settler colonizers. They have no idea of using the state in order to transform to society fundamentally. In fact, we are asking too much of them. You are asking too much of them if you say you use the military in order to change society. They can't even use institutions of popular culture. They control the media, they control education. But if you go to school, if you watch TV, the values that are transmitted in those institutions are the values of the white settler colonizer. So they can't even use institutions of cultural reproduction. To expect them to use the military, we're asking too much of them. These are people whose capability to imagine a society has long left them. The other great paradox here was that when everybody said a revolution, a communist revolution, Marxist revolution comes, they are attacking the values. It was deeply inspired by Christian values.
The other paradox in Venezuela is that when the revolution came, everybody said that it's a communist, a Marxist revolution, and was on the contrary. It was a revolution inspired, deeply inspired in the Christianism values.
Not Christianism used to exploit, but Christianism used to remind that we all have the same rights. And as Jesus Christ said, what you do to the smallest of mine, you are doing to me.
And not the Christianism, not the Christianism used to exploit people, but the Christianism that said, that affirmed that you have to be, we are all equal. And as Jesus Christ said, what you do to the little, you are doing it to me also.
And besides, here, every cult is respected.
And additionally, I have to note that here in Venezuela, all religions, all cults are respected.
The problem with modern thought is that it is driven by a self-fulfilling prophecy. It is driven by an overbearing sense of self, which is overconfident in itself. It thinks that it can explain everything. So even before they had and listened to Chavez, they thought they could explain him in the movement. That's a problem with modern thought. Everything must fit into its existing categories. Those of us who watch this revolution from the outside we are convinced that what drove Chavez was love for the people. It was love for himself and love for the people. This love finds expression in Christianity, because before you love other people, you must love yourself. What the black people who lead us in South Africa today lack is love for themselves and love for the people. We are led by black people who are driven by self-hatred and self-negation, and they extend this to the people. They treat their own people with contempt. Chavez was the opposite of that. And it became a geopolitical danger. That always made us think that the death of Chavez was not natural at all. And we believe that as sometime a famous physician, U.S. physician, told me, a professor, he wrote angry and said Chavez's disease could have been caused by microparticles, high-density radioactive microparticles. Perhaps somebody introduced it in some invitation or something similar. Chavez did not die from natural death. He charged him for what he did against their interests and in favor of the people.
What you're saying that Chavez did, he became in a geopolitical danger. He affected the interest of imperialism, and we are convinced that the death of Chavez was not natural. And as sometime one physician, renowned physician, a doctor, a scholar, told me that the death of Chavez could be caused by microparticles, radioactive microparticles, and that could be put it into Chavez maybe through a letter, an invitation to a banquet. But definitively, we do not believe that the death of Chavez was natural.
We have to mourn the death of Commander Chavez. He was an exemplary leader, not only to the people of Venezuela. He knew that the struggle in Venezuela would not succeed if it was not the struggle of the whole of Latin America. And obviously that would have posed a threat to Imperial America and Imperial Europe. He had an acute understanding of geopolitics. We mourn his death. The imperialist who killed him would have to kill us all in order to stop the revolution. Because those who live in bondage have nothing to lose. The black colonized everywhere in the world have nothing to lose. In fact, it is their bondage that they would lose. So, just like Chairman Mao said long ago to us, just like Chairman Mao said to us long ago, Chairman Mao of China said, to rebel is just. We must be encouraged by the example of Chavez, and we thank him for dedicating his life to his people. Unfortunately, our time is over, and I want to remind you that Chavez's thought was inspired in the sense of Jesus Christ, and this was the blue Christ he showed frequently. We are brothers and sisters above all political, racial, social difference, and we share this wish for justice. And the armed forces of this country, when they crossed the border, it freed 5 nations. That also is a historical guarantee. Regardless of that, I would like to say that for us it was a great honor to have you here, and that we wish you the best of successes. And we want to tell you that this program is open to you whenever you come back to the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela.
I would like to remind you that the Christ I show you, this Christ was the Christ, the blue Christ that Chavez always shows, and it represents the brotherhood that we have as peoples. Above all, this represents that brotherhood. And also I want to mention that our military force, when some time ago crossed our borders and went to other countries, was not to conquer, was to free 5 nations. And that is the spirit that we have today. We want to make all the people free. And I would like to wish you the best for your success on your cause. And always, this program will be at your service whenever you want. And, well, thank you very much.
The struggling people of South Africa that I am part of thanks Venezuela for being such an example to us. The spirit of Chavez continues to guide us, just as it guides you. Long live the spirit of Chavez. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. Well, Doctor, this has been a special opportunity. Unfortunately, television is dictatorial in this, so Dr. Loasi Lushaba, I want to greet you with how we do to the characters that have impacted us. This means that this was very good. Thank you very much. This has been a program that will be great in its consequences.